What? I heard my name. All right. Who did what over the weekend? I want to hear the story. Who did what? Like who did something over the weekend? I want to hear a story. Madison. No, you just want to say. I know every time you did this weekend. Who else did something over the weekend? Tell me a story. I want to. Haven, what'd you do over the weekend? To the beach. Which one? Hey, phone up now. We're gonna have a conversation about that in a second. St. Simon's. What'd you do at St. Simon's?
Went to the beach and then I ate at Barbara Jean's.
Did you eat at my favorite St. Simon's restaurant?
What is your
You're supposed to know that. You're supposed to.
Huh?
Southern Soul.
What does that have to do right there? But it's
It's an
not
old gas
in the big-
station. It was on Diners, Dives, and Drive-Ins, whatever that TV show is.
Wait, I have to get
It's owned by Davis Love III.
It's a barbecue place.
Yeah.
They have burgers.
So did you eat at my favorite St. Simon's restaurant?
No, I went to Barbara Jean's. That's where I ate. And then,
Well, you ate more than once, I bet.
Now that's what I want.
no, I only went
That's
yesterday.
what you want?
I just went for the day yesterday.
We, just yesterday. We always buy a mustard base barbecue sauce whenever we're there. The yellowish. Who else did something over the weekend?
I didn't do anything. I just stayed home.
Okay. Rest of Chrissy, I wish I had a weekend of rest. I didn't, but I wish that was. Who else? Because I'm gonna tell you my story. What I did over the weekend.
You went to
Bucket
Disney.
list item for my wife.
You ran.
Really proud of her.
We already know.
We ran. I don't know how you know.
We already know.
I
We
literally-
went to Disney and we ran the Disney Princess Half Marathon. And it was just as many women as you might think would be at a Disney Princess Half Marathon. But she brought along her prince, which is Kristoff himself. I almost said Hans of the Southern Isles, but that would not be accurate. So yeah, we adult Disney, pretty hardcore. We went all in on the costume, but like, are you even surprised, right? You got to
No.
no. So she is wearing an Anna costume,
Yeah.
and I ran in full Kristoff attire. And yes, it was probably just as hot as it looks. And I was sweeping the hair out of my face the whole time. But Casey doesn't love running. It's not super her jam. So I'm really proud that she went all in, and we did end up with, do it for the medal. If there's nothing else, do it for the medal, right? So I'm proud of her. I'm proud of me. I haven't run that far in a while. So that's what we did this weekend. Now, we were not super concerned about our time. And because they had a whole lot of Disney life along the way, we didn't go to the parks. We didn't ride any of the rides. That's not what the race was. But we ran through the parks, and at certain points there was these like character stops, and again, it wasn't even for the kids. It was Disney adulting at Disney, if you will. But we stopped at most of the character stops and took pictures. And Ariel is Sayla's favorite, so we definitely stopped there. Pictures along the way, right? We weren't smiling like that quite the whole time, but when the photographers were there, fake it till you make it, right? And she got her perfect photograph. She edited hers for color and didn't edit mine for color.
Sorry, you're in the
All right. Anyhow, that's what we did this weekend, and I just want to brag on my wife because she finished a half marathon. Her second. She's run 2 half marathons, and that's pretty cool. She says never again, but she also said that after the first one, and then we did another one. So I don't know. Probably got to give her a minute or two, but I think she might want to do another one eventually if the magic is right.
Like I can see yourself in the background of that.
I am. You know what, Christy? So yeah, I am in the background here. She said, I want a picture of just me. So I had to follow the back and let her run through that photographer by herself.
Y'all were
Anyway.
running and talking?
Oh yeah. We were
No,
definitely
no,
conversing.
no.
It was definitely conversational based.
Wait.
Now so it started at 5 a.m., which was before the Disney day started. But I really don't know how many thousands of runners. It was a lot. There was points where we like shoulder to shoulder and like really couldn't even stride it out because there were so many people just clogging a relatively narrow, certain points of it was narrow. Anyhow, everyone who did the run showed up before the Disney day even started, right? Before the parks even opened. And I think about the workers, like they showed up and they're doing like the water and the aid stations and all the regular working jobs. And then they had to do their Disney day too. Now I'm sure they worked out the shifts and whatnot, but Anyhow, super fun bucket list item. Let me give you this. I encourage you to set hard goals for yourself. I encourage you to reach farther than you think is normal, whether that's a 5K or a half marathon, whether it's academic or physical, whatever the case may be. I want to show you that it's good to do hard things. It's good to reach for a goal and accomplish it. So that is why I share with you Swanson Life every now and then, just to show you what goal setting can look like, what accomplishment can look like. And it wasn't easy. I'll tell you, it wasn't. At one point, I called it the Disney Death March. Miles 9 through about 13, okay, right till about the end was pretty much the Disney Death March. It was hot. The magic was wearing off, but we stuck in there and we did it. We got finished. Got the medal at the end, right? It's all about that medal at the end. So who has paid attention to the world news since we last met? Anybody have anything to add about
I like
Ukraine
to
and Russia?
sleep safe.
You what?
I like to sleep safe.
So you don't pay attention to the world news?
No.
I hear that, Christy. But remember, my goal for you is to give you enough information that you are informed, because it's that lack of information that usually causes us fear, right? When our brain doesn't have when we have gaps, our brain fills those in, and a lot of times that's where fear comes in. So I'm trying to give you I'm trying to inform you. I'm trying to give you the true information as best I know it as well, so that we can understand what's going on. So did anyone pay attention? Or you just want the Swanson update?
We want
Let's
that.
hear
You explain it
The
better.
fighter
Ghost
pilot,
of,
Ghost of Kiev.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think that it's one fighter pilot? Yeah, just like Homer with one poet, right? I think now. To be real clear, I'm not a regional expert, and I don't have insider information that you don't have. I really don't. But I got a thinking brain on my shoulders. I think that the Ghost of Kiev, while is being attributed to one fighter pilot, is probably more than one. Probably one, just like folk legend grows. Think about the Patriot, right? Mel Gibson's character, which I know that's fiction, but the Ghost is out there killing redcoats. Ghost of Kiev is probably more than one fighter pilot. It's just they never really see more than one plane at a time. So everybody, every time they see a friendly fighter pilot, they're like, it's the Ghost again. Anyhow, that's one take on that. A big theme overall, Austin, I'm glad you brought it up, is misinformation. There's a lot of false narrative out there. Some of it's on purpose. Sometimes the Ukrainians or the Russians are using falsehoods to try to build up their side of the story. The Russian government is trying to hoodwink its public by saying they are liberators. They are bringing freedom to the Ukraine. And if that's the only information you have, maybe believe that. On the other hand, the Ukrainians are trying to build up their own people's story, trying to show off the courageous acts of heroism, and there have been plenty. But there's misinformation on both sides. Okay? Not every cell phone picture you see is 100% accurate. And I'm going to give you an example of that here in just a second. So just as a reminder, this is the Ukraine we're talking about, right? This is the size of it. I showed it to you laid over the east coast of the United States, so you can see it's pretty sizable. Reminder, this is just the world map. Russia right here, of course, extends all the way off the map as well. That's how large it is. This is the Ukraine. It's a buffer to the rest of what?
Europe.
The rest of free Europe. Yeah, the rest of NATO alliance Europe. So that's kind of the significance of Ukraine. Other significant portions of Ukraine include its geography, such as port cities. Yeah, there's also a lot of minerals and natural resources in Ukraine. I didn't know that till this week. Like I said, I'm not a Ukraine expert, but Ukraine is a pretty wealthy patch of God's green earth, whether you ever knew it or not. Oil, but also other minerals and natural resources. So there's a lot of reasons why Russia might want to annex Ukraine. I think the biggest one is more the symbolic recognition of Ukraine as formerly belonging to Russia, formerly being a part of the Soviet Union. So the Russian president is saying, hey, you used to be a part of our country, so we're just taking back what was always rightfully ours. I think that really is the biggest reason why he's going into this whole war here. I think it was this class that asked this question. I really can't remember, but I'm going to elaborate here. Did someone ask about Belarus last week?
Someone did, but I don't remember who.
Yeah, I think someone did. I didn't have the answer then. I do now. I think Belarus is pretty complicit in the whole attack. I think it's kind of interesting that the news is not talking about Belarus, as little as they are. Belarus has allowed Russia to enter its space and attack from across its border. So in the grand scheme of things, Belarus is just as complicit, as involved
Selling out.
as Russia is. Yeah. Now, Belarus troops are not in the Ukraine, but because they allowed Russia free passage into their terrain, allowed Russia to attack across their
So
border.
they're basically like selling out so they are next.
So I bet the Belarus defense is similar to what Christy said. We're letting Russia do what they do because they could dominate us as well. And that's part of the truth. Like Russia is intimidating to a smaller country. But I actually had a real deep conversation with a lawyer friend. He's a military lawyer friend. He says the international law says, this is a little extra, right? So hang in there with me. International law says if a country has reasonable understanding that an action will be taken on their homeland, such as Belarus has a reasonable expectation Russia would invade across their border, they are just as complicit, right? For allowing Russia into their space in the first place with an understanding that Russia is going to commit a crime crossing the international boundary, that makes Belarus just as complicit. So, not the good guys. Belarus is not an innocent bystander. They are just as involved, and I do think we should keep our ear to the ground about Belarus in the coming days as well. Just as a reminder, there's U.S. troops in Poland, Germany, and Italy, not ready for war, but just posturing. I say that they're there to show off, okay? That's why the U.S. troops are stationed all throughout Europe. So this is just a reminder. Then we're looking at the map. We can remember what's there. Again, showing you here Russia, and again off to the map as well. This is Ukraine. These regions right here are ethnically what? Yeah, largely ethnically Russian, and this is the source of the conflict in the first place.
Isn't the whole country technically ethnically Russian?
Chrissy, you're on a good thought there, but it'd be like Southern Arizona has a lot of Hispanic heritage. It'd be like saying that is ethnically Mexican, and Mexico is just going to cross the border and take back what they want. We wouldn't stand for that, and Ukraine's not going to stand for that either. So as a world community, as an international community, we have to decide what are we going to do about the bully crossing the international boundary and picking on the younger kid. Hey, thought, question.
Where did you say the American troops were?
American troops are in Poland. This is the 82nd Airborne Division. Germany. This is the 3rd Infantry Division out of Fort Stewart. They just got to Germany. And Italy. They've always been in Italy. Okay, that's not like we put them there for this. We've always had a brigade in Italy.
Why?
And it is, ever since World War II, we just kind of
So we just keep people there for
yep.
For just in
Yep.
case.
Yep, it's a partnered agreement. It's not an invasion of Italy or anything like that. It's a partnered agreement. They like having us there. And in terms of situations like this, we have people already in Europe. These are paratroopers, guys that jump out of airplanes. So you could think that they could reasonably get on an airplane and end up wherever they needed to. That's just information about the world situation. All right. All right, moving on. This is what I showed you, and this was on Thursday. And remember, we talked about this goes all the way back to 2014. I'm not super concerned about this being red because that's been red since 2014. I know a lot of people turned on the news last week and were like, "Wow, Russia's invaded Ukraine." Take it back a couple steps further. Russia and Ukraine have been tense for a long time. It's just most of the world wasn't paying attention to it. These are those ethnically Russian regions we just talked about, so I'm not super concerned that that's red. It's kind of understandable, like they let them walk right on in. This is where the fighting is happening, and you can see the boundary with Belarus. You can see how Belarus becomes complicit. This is Thursday. What did I describe about this militarily? A win or a loss for Russia?
Lost.
Yeah, kind of taking the L. It's like the Super Bowl champions getting beat up on by a smaller college team, right? I know I said Super Bowl champs and Jacksonville Jaguars. I actually want to change my analogy a little bit. I think Russia's like the Super Bowl champs, okay, a mega strong military, and Ukraine's kind of like Georgia Southern football team.
hey.
They're good against their own opponents, but they're not really going to match up next to the Super Bowl champs. Work with me on an analogy. Work with some of you guys are like, yeah. It's a military that's out of their league. Okay, the Russian military is mighty. The Ukrainian military way out of their league. Pretty good, Georgia Southern. All right, pretty good first day of the war. Now watch this. This is day 2, February 25th. I'm going to go back and forth just a little bit here. I tried to line them right up. We see a little bit of change in the red, not a whole lot. Now, this is what would be most notable about Friday. This takes you back to Friday. Okay, I'm giving you a big update here. Friday, they did come a whole lot closer to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. That's significant, right? If someone was encroaching upon Washington, D.C., and all the government buildings and all the government people, we'd be concerned. So coming towards Kiev, that's pretty significant. But they didn't win. You can see that they get stopped on the outside of Kiev. Pretty significant. Like,
Did you get back on time?
yep, this is
But
the
they actually did they look like they lost on it a little bit at the bottom?
You're right. Yeah, there are portions. So this is Thursday, Friday, Thursday, Friday. Now they gained on Friday, but there was change up here as well. Okay. Now hang with me, and we can analyze these maps on and on and on and on. Here it skips Saturday and it goes to Sunday. So we got a change in this area. We have a change in this area. We have a small change in this area, but most notably, they're still on the outside of Kiev. All right, not to get too deep into this picture here. Here's all three of them in a row. I know your brain can get, you get a headache looking at all of those, and maybe my military brain is nerding out a little too hard. The point remains, it's an L for the Russians. They are the reigning champions, should be the dominant military over this minor Ukrainian military, and they're taking the L. They're taking the L hard. And at this point, we've seen this in world history. We're going to see it in U.S. history as we get into the world wars. As we study the world wars this year, I hope you guys are going to have like an extra understanding of how significant they are, because as it relates to this, Russians are overextended on the miles that they're spread out. They are so far away from their homeland. They're so far away from their source of food, water, and fuel. And it's not like the Ukrainians are opening the grocery stores to them. It's not like the Ukrainians are letting them fill up at the pump. The Russians have overextended their line. They are farther, their combat forces are so far ahead of their sustaining forces that they're starting to crack. They're out of food, they're out of water, and most importantly, they're out of fuel for their heavy equipment, their trucks, and their tanks. So that is significant. The Ukrainians have held their own for about 6 days, right? We think 6 days, 6 days is not all that long. 6 days for these Ukrainians, probably the longest 6 days of their life, and they have held. They have held. So that should be encouraging overall. Now, there's a whole lot of geopolitics that I'm not going to get into. I'm not a regional expert. If you have side questions, I can try to address them, but I want to give you this. You guys know Mr. Rogers?
Oh my
It's a
God.
beautiful day in the neighborhood. Zip your sweater up and bring it halfway back down. Well, Mr. Rogers brings a lot of social value to the children who watch his TV show. I grew up on Mr. Rogers. I know it's probably a step past your generation, but listen to this from Mr. Fred Rogers. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And if you look at this news, right, as scary as some portions of it may be, as confusing as some portions of it may be, we see story after story of people helping. We see the strength of the Ukrainians. We're seeing awesome leadership from the Ukrainian president, the mayor of Kiev. Like, we're seeing some real textbook examples of what it means to be a good leader. We're seeing what it means to be a bad leader from the Russian perspective as well. And we're seeing examples of people helping people, neighbors helping neighbors, and there's some good to be found in this story as well. And I want to take this quote and finish it up with a little bit of a primary source. What's the primary source?
First person.
First person, someone who's there, right? I got one friend who's in Ukraine right now, and I don't say that to say like I know all the answers or he's telling me exactly what it's like. He went to college at the same time. He was a senior when I was a freshman. He's a bit of a mentor to me, right? His name's Kevin Smith. He was a senior when I was a freshman. He graduated. We stayed in touch, all that kind of stuff. He got out of the Army, and about a year ago, he went to Ukraine, right? There were still tensions. It wasn't in the news quite as like it is today, but there were certainly tensions. About a year ago, he went to Ukraine to be a missionary, okay, to connect with the church there, to try to spread the gospel of Jesus. That's his beliefs, and those are mine as well. So Kevin did a radical thing by going to Ukraine. Now, of course, he finds himself in the position of being on the front lines of everything that's happening there. I'll tell you where he is. He is in Odessa, which you can see is not in the red, but it is obviously in Ukraine, and it's close to everything that's happening. He tells me that they've experienced some aircraft, some rockets overhead, no forces on the ground. Actually, I'll tell you a little bit about the misinformation because Kevin told me a little bit about that. There was one particular video that was said to have been in Odessa. And I was a little concerned because I knew Kevin was in Odessa, and I said, hey man, what about this particular video? He said, I don't think that video is true because we didn't have any fighting in Odessa on that day. Could be, I didn't see everything, but I really don't think that video is true. I think it's misinformation. So it just goes to show you that just because it showed up on Facebook or Snapchat or guys, even CNN and Fox News have been getting tricked. Okay, they've been showing things and then kind of have to back off on it. They're like, "Ooh, we showed this video, but actually we found out it wasn't exactly the case." So there's a lot of misinformation out there. Kevin, of course, is on the ground, and he was able to tell me some facts we don't have otherwise. So I know a lot of people maybe have contacts on the inside, military, this, that, and other. I got just a little bit with my friend Kevin here. And all that said, I'm going to show you, he posted this particular video, okay, via Facebook Live. And obviously that's kind of a radical, the fact that we can still be having Facebook Live and such happening inside of a war zone. He posted this on Thursday, which was the first day of the conflict. So it's a little bit dated, right, from now on because several more days have been happening. But just take his perspective on the eve of a war. Take his perspective and what he's about to say on the video here. Take that with the thought that tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen. They could roll through here anytime. Take his perspective, hear his words, and think about that. Think if this was your own life, how you would be feeling, and think about how he's going about business in this way.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to get back on here again tonight and let you guys see and hear what we're hearing in our part of town right now. It's been a little bit of an exciting day even in Odessa here, just a few more big explosions throughout the day. But overall, people are going about business with a sense of calm and really just trying to prepare themselves for a longer time. But as we look at the news feeds and the constant cycle of what's happening now, what's going to happen tomorrow, these are trying times. They are times that people can be very fearful, and people are. We're feeling those nerves too. I was just telling Natalka today that first time I've ever been shot at by ballistic missiles, so there's that. But what's really cool is that as I've gone into the center today, I walked around out here in our part of the town. There's a distinct difference between the calm and the peace that we as believers have. Jesus tells us that in our life we will have troubled times. We will face very rough times. But in that, he gives us peace. And he gives us peace unlike the world gives. It's not just peace in knowing that there's safety. It's peace in knowing that even if the bombs are falling from the sky, the helicopters are coming in, the tanks are rolling in, we know that God is in control. And I've also been thinking about what would it feel like to be the people of Israel as they had just escaped from slavery in Egypt, and they're out getting ready to be able to go and worship God how they've been commanded. And the next thing they know, the chariots and the enormous army of Pharaoh is bearing down on them, and their backs are trapped against the Red Sea. In this case, sometimes being in a small country of Ukraine, when the large Russian army is against us, it feels like we're facing Pharaoh's army, and we're just the slaves that have escaped. But I must say, Ukraine is much more prepared than that militarily. But there's still that feeling of what's going to happen. What in the world can go right with this situation? And the reason it reminds me of that is not the danger, it's the impossibility of the situation, and knowing that the living God is in control, and the faith it takes to step into the water and see it part before you, and God makes a way. I know there's a lot of people listening from many, many places in the world today. If you guys don't have that kind of assurance that you could face any possible situation and know that whether I live or die does not matter, I will be in heaven and I will live abundant life and I will be with my Savior. If you don't know that, contact me. I would love to talk to you about it. And we hope to do that here as well, as this is an exceptional time. We've opened up our house and we're trying to just help those of the international church that we've been attending, get them out of the city and calm their nerves too. But I wanted to get on here and just give you that update, guys. We're praying for you guys as well, and we appreciate your prayers here for us. Thank you for everything.
Homeboy said he's praying for me. Isn't that crazy? I think I'm going to pray for him. So whether you come from it from a faith perspective or not, you can see that faith is pretty central to people who are living it at the time. Actually, the president of Ukraine is a practicing Jew. So we've talked about the significance of world religions. President Zelensky is a practicing Jew. Obviously, there's Christians in the country, and Kevin is working on helping them find safety as the Russians roll through. So just a little bit of on-the-ground perspective. Whether you come from a faith perspective or not, you can recognize that a lot of people in the trenches right now are coming to the situation from a faith perspective. I'm going to round it out with this. I told you there's a lot of misinformation out there. This is probably accurately, you could say it's Ukrainian propaganda, and I'm going to willingly share it, right? I'm going to share this Ukrainian propaganda because I think it makes a great message. You got to pay attention to the screen because there's subtitles for the language, okay? Yeah, it's a little bit propaganda, but I think it also describes the situation pretty well.
Я батько. Я молодший брат. Я водій маршрутки. Я скоро одружуся. Я фанат-шахтер. Начальник отдела продаж. Я прораб. Я программист. Я свидетель на свадьбе. Дядя Юра. Я вчитель физкультури. Я студент геолог. Я краще друг зі школи. Я сусід, який завжди стукає по батареї. Я єдиний син.
Glory to Ukraine. That's all I can say about that. Keep your nose into the news. Keep your ear to the ground. Keep reading. Pay attention. Stay engaged. Honors class, I really expect y'all to want to know about the world situation. So I'll keep bringing you updates from from my perspective at an age-appropriate level so that you can understand what's going on in the world. We are going to take our bathroom break first, and once we start the movie, we'll just ride on through to the end. So do that. You got any side questions or concerns or whatever?
I'll go.
Oh, no. If you saw the